Welcome to Answers Unleashed, a talk show to help you reshape your brain with science and faith so you find the answers in front of you. Hi, I am your host, Olympia LePoint. Can you jump through time? And can you jump through time and make better decisions? Is that possible? Well, we've seen movies like Back to the Future with Michael J. Fox playing his character where he jumped back in time to see himself and see his parents and change the course of history and then jumped forward in time and did the same thing. Can we do that? Can we jump through time and space to change the situation? And we've all seen movies like The Fly, where the teleportation was something that was science fiction. And one person in The Fly, the movie The Fly, went into a teleportation machine and then he came out on the other end at a different time frame, but that teleportation didn't work out the way that he had planned. And if you watch the movie, you know that he turns into the Fly. Is that possible? Can long distance teleportation actually work? Can we jump through time? Is this possible? And is it possible to use when you make decisions? That's a question for you today. And that is our topic. We're today going to find out about how to actually jump through time and start helping ourselves through a process that I call quantum deciding. Now, you're gonna be like, what is she talking about? What on the world is this? This sounds too science fiction. In today's episode, we're going to look at the basis of where quantum entanglement came from and understand what quantum physics is. We're going to understand how quantum physics is actually used in real life scenarios right now through NASA with long distance teleportation. And lastly, we're going to see exactly how we can use these principles in a method that I call quantum deciding, in the way that we can start connecting the dots in our past and our future so we make effective decisions today. I know this is an episode for you to remember. Now, I'm excited because we are doing our 101 episode. Can you believe it? 101 episode of Answers Unleashed. And we normally would have produced and recorded the radio show and podcast at the campus that we were working at before. But as you know, we are in the pandemic. Most campuses are closed and we are keeping safe. So we are broadcasting from a home studio that will allow us to still get the information and post it online on our answersunleashed.com/podcast site. So we have information about technology, our decisions, and information about the future. Okay. Have you heard of the term quantum mechanics or quantum physics? Have you heard of that term? If you haven't, that's okay. If you have, that's great. Now let me describe what that is, and then I'm going to explain what quantum entanglement is in a very clear way so you really get it. The word quantum means to be able to jump through time, and that even though there is a large distance between situations where it takes time to travel back and forth, quantum means that you will be able to look at a position or look at the location no matter where you are in time. So the word quantum deals with understanding how properties exist with particles or atoms or people even, how they will exist through the span of time. That's what quantum usually typically means in the science world. When you deal with quantum physics, you're looking at where is the position in time. Physics deals with energy. That's one. Physics deals with energy. And when you can identify where the energy goes in time, you call it quantum physics. It's that simple. Now, quantum physics is a huge subject in physics, and it is one of the most fascinating branches of science that exist. And quantum physics deals with trying to understand where a particle or an object has been, where it is right now, and where it will most likely be in the future. So quantum physics is understanding that transition mode and understanding where anything's going to be located at any point in time. When you use the word quantum mechanics, that's the mathematics that's used to predict where something will be. Now, quantum mechanics is the mathematics that's used to understand where a particle is going to be after, let's say, 10 minutes, or where a particle will be after 5 years. A perfect example is if you look at where the satellites are traveling around the world. These satellites are helping you and I be able to see each other and talk to one another during the pandemic. And so it gives us communication no matter where we are. And it depends on satellites. But engineers have to know exactly where these satellites will be in, let's say, 30 days from now or 5 years from now. So understanding where the position of a certain satellite will be will help engineers make sure several things. One, that we have the right internet connections. Two, it makes sure that it's safe and it won't collide into other things that are in space or in orbiting around our Earth, like the International Space Station and things like that. And three, it gives engineers an ability to be able to help keep information secure. If they know where a satellite is, and the data that's housed in the satellite, it can be kept secure if someone knows where it is. So scientists are always concerned with making sure they know the position of a certain object in time. Now, this is used within space travel, understanding how long it's going to take for us to get to certain planets. Quantum physics is brilliant. And quantum physics deals with atomic structures. It deals with making sure we understand the properties of one particular particle versus another. Now, in the 1930s, there was something called the Epr Paradox. And then Albert Einstein followed it up with something that he called spooky action at a distance. Now you're like, what is this? Okay. Here. I have 2 dice, and I'm going to describe what this spooky action at a distance is that Albert Einstein later called quantum entanglement. Imagine this. Imagine this one die and this one die being 2 separate die. Right? So these dice are just in the universe. Let's just imagine that. And for some peculiar reason, at one point in time, these dies connect. They touch. And then when they separate, they now have this secret communication between them. So let's say when this one shows up to be a 4, this one also turns and shows up to be a 4. And no matter how far these dice go and separate from one another, as this one turns into a 3, here you go, surprisingly, miles and miles apart, this die then turns up to be a 3. Now, is that possible? Well, in 1932, they found out this was happening. When 2 particles collided, 2 photons exactly collided, scientists found this phenomenon. It was this spooky action at a distance, that as one would change, the other particle would change no matter how far it was away from the original collision. And as one would change, let's say this one would change its time to be a 6, didn't matter how far the other particle was away, this one would turn into a 6 also. And Albert Einstein called this spooky action at a distance. And he said that there exists a secret quantum communication between particles that collide, and the properties that exist in one atom or one particle or one photon or one person even. Well, they didn't say it was people back then. They talked about particles. That same characteristic would happen with the other. And this secret communication was a theory at first until last year, 2020. You see, NASA scientists were always using new methods to secure data. Now, let me break this down for you in such a profound way that it makes sense to you and you will forever remember this concept for the rest of your life. Quantum entanglement is this spooky action at a distance. This quantum entanglement means that no matter where you are in space or time, the particular events are entangled. As one turns to a 3, the other one turns to a 3. Here we go, a 3. Now, these particular entanglement phenomenons could be helpful. And do you know how it could be helpful? With our technology. NASA in 2020 was able to determine long distance teleportation using quantum entanglement. Now, let me describe what that means, how important it is, and the science behind the application. When we have data, it is housed in major clouds. Like, for example, if you use your Word document, it's more than likely housed on different platforms. And we see it housed on Microsoft or Google or you name it. We have different platforms to house data. Now, that data is on certain servers. And what the servers do is it communicates with a certain satellite, and that satellite then gives you the information to your computer. There's a communication that exists. Now, in order to keep data secure, there has to be security systems. Now, these security systems make sure that only you get your data. Like, for example, if you go to the bank, you want to go to your bank and get your money out. You don't want to go to the bank and get someone else's money out. Well, if you needed money, then I guess you would kind of want to have another opportunity, but that's besides the point. You want to keep your data safe and secure. And so banking institutions, DNA collection institutions, medical institutions want to secure your data. Major facial recognition software needs to secure your data. Every time you are online, YouTube even, your data is being captured on your face, and that's being housed. So in order to keep data secure, there has to be security in the technology to make sure that the person retrieving it is the person who's supposed to have it. Now, here's the reason why NASA was really concerned about quantum entanglement. Quantum entanglement allows there to be secure communication. So if you can have a key that unlocks data over here, there exists a secure communication that will also unlock the data over here so the owner gets the data and it is a secure communication. So if scientists could create this long distance teleportation, meaning data being transferred from one location to another independent of time and space, then there could be new ways for securing data in banking, in medical situations, in DNA, and it also introduces a new opportunity for you and I to use what is going to come about in the future called quantum internet. Now, just like we have the regular internet and you have cables to be able to go into your modem that you have from all the different service providers, now that NASA has created long-distance teleportation, they're able to send information through a quantum entanglement process that is called long-distance teleportation that allows one person to get the information and it's retrieved by the other, and it's a secret communication. Now, that secret communication needs new hardware, and that type of hardware is going to introduce what scientists are now seeing as quantum internet. I know. It's just like if any of you were in the 1980s, it's just like the VCR when you could actually tape a TV show. I know some of you are watching that and chuckling because you were like I was in 1984 when a VCR came out, or whenever it was in the 1980s that a VCR came out. So long distance teleportation is being used by NASA to help find ways to keep data safe and secure, so only the right person is able to access it. Now, let's talk about jumping through time. And because I opened up this particular podcast with, can you jump through time and space to actually help yourself? Let me describe how you jump through time in this process. If a satellite is really far away, it takes a long time for the information to actually get down to Earth. Well, not long time, but it takes a distance. It's a distance that the information travels, and also it is time that information travels. If you can short circuit the amount of time it takes to transfer one piece of data to a next location, you can jump through time. The faster you are able to create a communication, a secure communication, you can actually jump from one set of data into another set of data, and it will take you half the time. So it would actually, you can jump through time to actually get information from one place to another. Well, in this process and in this understanding of science, when you jump through, actually, I should say it this way. If data can jump through time, and my theory is, so can you. And let me describe that a little bit. In Albert Einstein's theory of entanglement, he talked about observation. And actually, it's Schrodinger. Schrodinger was specifically the scientist that talked about observation. Now, let me describe that. And this is going to be really fascinating for you to hear. Let's consider this secret communication that exists again. And before we were talking about particles, but now Schrodinger said that suppose it's a person observing something. Let's say it's a person observing molecules underneath a microscope. The fact that the person is observing something underneath a microscope is a collision type of situation. And then by the person observing what's underneath the microscope automatically changes because it's just been observed. Meaning, when humans observe something, whatever it observes changes. It's the observation principle. And there's technical scientific terms for all of this, but I'm breaking it down in a very clear way in English so you really understand what this means. So my theory in quantum deciding is that if you are an observer of yourself and you go back in time and remember where you were in certain situations, you then have a collision moment. And then no matter how much time passes by from that time that you observe yourself to the time where you are now, there exists a secret communication between you and yourself that no one else can hack. Now, let me explain this in a really practical way. Do you remember when you were 5? I'm sure you do. And most people do remember when they were 5. Most people are in kindergarten or school. If you can remember yourself, where were you? Can you observe where you were? The fact of you observing where you were, you then connect with yourself. Take it a step farther. Let's say you remember where you were when you're 5 years old, and you actually just imagine yourself going to your ear and telling yourself really something that was very inspiring, something that's going to coach you, and something that's going to make you feel alive. Now, suppose in that moment, when you go to talk to yourself and you tell yourself something so amazing, what if at that moment there's a connection between you right now and you when you were 5? If you observe yourself, suppose that your 5-year-old self is forever positively changed about you going back and talking to you. The concept of quantum deciding is we make decisions independent in time and space, meaning the decisions that we make now connects to us in the past, and the decisions that we make now connects to us in the future. If we can go back in time and connect with ourselves and create a one-on-one communication with ourselves in the past, then it becomes easier for us to connect with ourselves in the future and make a one-on-one connection with ourselves in the future, so we find out what we need to do at this very moment to get to where we need to go. That is the concept in my latest book, Answers Unleashed 2, The Science of Attracting What You Want. In it, I talk about quantum deciding, meaning if you can connect to yourself both in the past and in the future, then you create a secure type of thinking for yourself, a secure communication where it becomes easier for you to make decisions because you have literally how I should say this. You've experienced long distance teleportation through jumping through time, observing yourself, and coaching yourself through the toughest moments. I know. It's quite interesting, isn't it? I found it very interesting when I put 2 and 2 together and I thought, can this quantum entanglement actually happen for humans? That's when I figured this out. Now, before in the 1930s and 1940s, it was hypothesized, can this quantum entanglement actually happen with humans? Can people actually jump through time like that? And originally, it was no, that can't happen. And Nobel Prize winners went in, said, no, it can't happen. And that was the understanding back then. But in my latest book, and I'm a mathematician, so I love mathematics. I love quantum physics. I love quantum mechanics. I love showing why something exists or why it doesn't. And in my latest book, so amazing. I developed a mathematics that shows the foundation of why quantum entanglement can exist in our thinking and therefore can exist in our decision making. And if you pick up the book, and I'm going to be talking about those particular aspects of our decision making in the next following podcast, but if we are able to understand that we have 6 dimensions of how we think and make decisions, meaning with our faith, with our identity, with our intent, with our learning, with our resources, and our love and time, if we're able to look at those ways of thinking as a type of brain energy, if we are able to look at it as a type of mental energy that we naturally exist in making decisions, then with the structure of how we make decisions, in addition to the mathematics that I introduce, it gives the foundation for quantum entanglement applying to your decision making. And I'm really happy because I know it works. And let me tell you the reason why. Years ago, I woke up. It was like, I think I was 9 years old. And I went to I went to the table. I couldn't sleep, and I went to the table and I started drawing some things out, and I listed all the things I wanted to be in the future. And rocket scientist was actually on that list, along with a lot of other things on that list. And when I looked at that list, I said, this is amazing. I want to do this in the future. And immediately, I started thinking about what I would more than likely do in the future. So I started seeing myself actually launching rockets. I was in this room, and it was an interesting room. It looked like just I was at a desk, and I opened up this book, and it was these amazing mathematics formulas, mathematics I had never seen before in my life. And I thought to myself, this is amazing. And I remember looking at the equation that was in the book in my imagination, and I thought it was an imagination. So after I wrote down everything on the list and I imagined what I was going to do in the future, I thought to myself, wow, that was a cool, amazing dream. And I saw myself when I was 30 in this particular vision that I had. And I remember thinking to myself, wow, that's amazing if I do that when I'm 30. And then I saw myself tell me, you can do this. All right. I eventually go back to sleep. I was 9 years old. I go back to sleep. The next day I carry on with my regular business, and I do what I normally did at 9 years old, which was go to school. And years passed, and I didn't see any major changes or anything else like that. I just stayed in school and finished my degrees, and I ended up graduating with mathematics degrees from California State University, Northridge, and continuing. And later on, going to work for the Boeing company, and I worked with a great team of people, and we were launching NASA rockets. And so I was supporting NASA missions control, and it was like a great opportunity. And I was 30 years old, and I remember trying to finish out a math problem that I was doing for graduate school at the time. Or no, I don't think I was doing it for graduate school. I think I was doing it for something else. And I remember opening up the book that I had. And I remember looking down at the page. And it was the same mathematics formula that I saw when I was 9 years old. Immediately, I stopped and I gasped. And I was just in complete shock because the exact place where I was, the exact location where I was doing this work was what I saw when I was 9 years old. Then I did something that you would not expect. I thought to myself, what if I go back to when I was 9 years old and tell myself I can do this? So I literally, in my imagination, went back to my 9-year-old self and said, you can do this. You can just stay in school. You can do this. And that, my friends, is how I connected with myself at 9 years old and came back and jumped through time to go where I needed to go. I hope that you always enjoy our podcast here. Always check us out on answersunleashed.com/podcast. If you have questions, go to our site, answersunleashed.com, ask a question. And then if you have questions and you want to call in, call 888-88-ANSWERS and ask your question. We may answer it on air for you. I am your host, Olympia LePoint, and I hope that you have enjoyed this particular talk. This particular talk is about quantum deciding, how that relates to the science and how that relates to you, and how you can actually go back in time and jump through time and create that secure communication with yourself so you make decisions easier. Again, I'm going to be sharing more with you over the next couple of weeks. And until next time, visit answersunleashed.com. I am Olympia LePoint, and I'll see you next time.